Welcome to the Beauty in Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. So we're back. We're talking the neuroscience of connection. Today, specifically, we're talking about listening, which is all about good communication. And if you remember, we're taking the next, I don't know how many more weeks we got left, but it's like 8 parts to talk about the neuroscience of connection based on a book by Dr. Amen.
Right.
You happier? And the overall question is, am I reinforcing the behaviors I like or dislike in my spouse? Okay, now the whole book is about doing it in others, but this dude's also a marriage counselor, marriage coach or whatever, and it uses that neuroscience. So we're going to give that to you. And this awesome word, relating, is our acronym.
Right.
Responsibility, empathy, listening, which we're going to talk about today, assertiveness, time spent together, inquiry, which is recognizing negative thought patterns, noticing what you like more than what you don't like, and grace. If you exercise those 8 things, according to neuroscience, you're actually going to have a good relationship, which is powerful.
Yep, so good.
So before we dive into that, though, Tori and I picked out a song you guys are going to like. Now, this one is one of my faves. I've been listening to this since I was about 16 years old, and I actually went to one of his concerts. But this song actually has no words, and you guys will all recognize it from my favorite, Kenny G, Forever in Love. Here you go. That is so good. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh. So good.
Such a relaxing song.
Oh my gosh. And what's great is our kids, because I've played that so much over the years, that our kids, I walk up into the room and they're listening to Kenny G to go to sleep. I love it.
They do all the time. It cracks me up because I never even heard of Kenny G before you, and now it's like a staple in our house, and it really does relax everybody.
It is so
which
awesome.
is a really good quality in the Benham home.
Yeah.
A little bit of calm.
It's so funny.
A little bit of calm will do you.
Drink the tea, the calm tea. Okay, so Tor, today we're talking about communication, but specifically listening, because that's what Dr. Amen talks about. Now listen, the problem with communication, I heard this quote, the problem with communication is the illusion that it's taking place. And we think about communication as just about talking.
Right.
Talking is good, but the best communication is about listening.
Yes. It's so good. I just think about James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
Ooh.
The Bible is very clear. Slow to speak.
Quick to listen. So if listening is the biggest part of communication, but active listening, because we're going to talk about how to be, Dr. Amen gives 7 strategies for how to be an active listener. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But if listening is the biggest part of communication, being an active listener, in the absence of communication, I heard this great quote by John Wagner. In the absence of communication, negativity always fills the void.
And that is just so true. Ever since I heard that quote, it is just so evident that is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Negativity fills the gap.
Yep.
Like, there's been so many times where I'm like, oh my goodness, when there's no communication, it just naturally, negativity fills that gap.
And when it comes to active listening, which is what we're going to focus on today, can you imagine talking to somebody who literally is looking at you stone faced, or you can tell in their mind they're somewhere else, or they're not even looking at you.
Yeah.
Like all of that, that's the absence of communication.
Right.
And negativity fills the void. So we don't want that to happen. Now, I love this because Dr. Amen, it gives us 2 lists. We're going to go over the first list. Bad listening habits. Some bad listening habits. What are some of those, Tor?
Okay, so the first one that he brings up, and this comes from years of sitting down with couples and doing marriage counseling with them. He said these are the ones that just keep repeating themselves.
Yeah.
First one is focusing on what you want to say rather than listening.
Oh, I've never
thinking
done that.
about what you want to say next and thinking about what's on your heart and what you want to make sure, the points that you want to make sure come across. You're doing that while the other person is speaking.
That's
so you're
terrible.
not here. You're not listening to what they're saying. You're not even hearing what they're saying. You're thinking about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Such a bad habit and such an easy one to fall into.
And I think it's because people focus on being understood.
Yes. Being heard and being understood.
Rather than understanding and hearing. Right. And I think just as spouses, if you can make that one shift.
Right.
That you, in your own mind, it's like, I am going to listen to everything. For me, it'd be listening to everything that she's saying, and I'm going to try to understand the angle she's coming from, rather than burying myself in my own position and thinking I need to convince her to understand the position that I'm coming from. Just drop that. I mean, we all know that the foundation for love in the Bible is sacrifice, right?
Right.
So in that moment when you're communicating, especially when it has something to do with conflict, sacrifice your position, so that you can seek to understand your spouse's position.
Yeah.
And chances are good, you may not fully agree with your spouse, but chances are good you're going to agree with a few things with your spouse that you wouldn't have agreed with had you not actually taken the time to listen and to seek to understand.
Yeah. And just take a moment. Like, you will be surprised if you put this into your mind. Okay, do I do this? Am I doing this? Just become self-aware.
Yeah.
To know, am I thinking about what I want to say next, or am I listening? You will be surprised how much you are thinking about what you want to say next. It's really a practice.
Yeah.
It's really something you have to first acknowledge you're doing, become aware of it, and then practice.
So what's the next one?
Next one is interrupting.
Oh, hey, I got a knock knock joke for you.
Knock knock.
No, I got the joke. You don't tell the joke, Tor.
Okay, go ahead.
Or are you going to tell the joke?
No, go ahead.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow. Who?
Okay.
That was really funny.
Sorry.
Okay, so interrupting. This is something that you and I have experienced in our relationship, right? Because you're a little bit
interrupting me. Like I just interrupted you now.
Jason is more quick to speak. You're just more quick. You have more words that come quickly.
He is filled with words.
He is filled with words. But something in our relationship that I've had to become better at is being more assertive in this area.
Yes.
And you have also just had to understand and not be sensitive to the fact that, babe, you're interrupting me.
Yes.
And
That's
just
good.
being aware that you're doing it and being sensitive when I'm like, babe, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You don't get offended. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again.
Yeah. And that is so good for couples to understand, because chances are one of the partners in the marriage is going to be more wordy, is going to be more vocal, is going to be more forthright and kind of abrasive. If the other partner recognizes the best thing that you can do in that moment when they interrupt you is to interrupt them back.
Yeah.
Be assertive and say, okay, please stop. Now, you don't want to be mean to them,
Right.
but like Tori actually goes, honey, like sometimes she'll put her hand on me. Honey, you just interrupted me. Like, and I'm like, oh crap, I did it again.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to be assertive. And that actually has really helped me a lot.
Yeah. And talk about it. Like, in your relationship, who is more quick to have the next line? Like, who's just words come quicker?
Yeah.
I'm more of a processor. I'm more of I'm going to take things in, think about it a little bit, and then talk about it. Right. And so we know that in our relationship, and we're just very heightenedly aware of it. And you're very much like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm doing it again. And I'm like, wait, I'm talking. So it's just having that understanding and talking about that. Like, okay, who's more of the talker? Who needs to be more assertive?
Yeah. What's the next one?
Lack of feedback.
Oh,
This is verbal or nonverbal.
the nonverbal is the biggest one.
Right.
You know?
Your expression on your face, your body language.
And we're going to dive deeper into that in the active listening strategies that we're going to give in a minute. So, but being able to give that feedback, if you're not giving feedback, then again, that's the lack of communication. What's going to fill the void in your spouse's mind? Negativity.
Yep.
So don't let that happen.
but you are speaking through your body language. You also need to be very aware of that.
Yeah.
The facial expression, the way that it matters.
Yeah. All right. So what's next?
The next one is getting distracted.
Oh, that never happens to me.
I think this has a lot to do with timing too, of when you're going to talk.
That's a good point.
I know, even just if you're a morning person or a night person, you're a morning person, right? In the morning, I'm half dead. Like I'm a walking zombie. And so that's probably not going to be a great time for you to like start a deep conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm distracted by this strong desire to be in bed.
That's funny.
And at night for you, when you're like, 10:30 hits, we lay in bed. That's not going to be a good time for me to like
don't
bring up something deep, because I'm going to be really frustrated that my voice has lulled you asleep.
Oh, it's like a lullaby. Like, I love your voice so much. I go night night now. Let's go night.
The beginning of our marriage, it happened all the time. I was like, I'm a night owl. I'm ready to talk. I might bring up all these things, and Jason's, snoring mid sentence.
Yeah.
And I'm like so irritated, but I've since learned that's not the right timing.
No, it's not. All right. So after getting distracted, what's next?
Lack of eye contact.
Oh,
we talked about this last week, how important being fully present. And a lot of that has to do with locking in with your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. And you've talked to people before who can't look you in the eye. Like when you're talking, it's like they're talking, you're looking them in the eye, but when you're talking, they're like not. It's very hard to figure out that situation.
But it's something that some people have to practice. I know that I've had to practice this. Can be easily distracted, and I have to be, I probably haven't been this way in the last few years, but I do remember this being a struggle for me, that I can be very distracted and tend to look away when people are talking. I'm like, that's something I have to really practice. So sometimes it doesn't come easy. Okay. The next one is daydreaming.
Yeah. That one's a hard one for me, because Tori will be talking and she'll say something that makes me think of something else. And the next, or she's describing a situation, and I'm actually thinking of that situation in my mind. And the next thing I know, I'm actually daydreaming about the situation, and I don't hear her talking anymore. And then I think this happened the other day when we were walking around the block. She's like, "Hey, where's your head? Like, are you listening to me?" I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You said this one thing about Trey. Our son is in the transfer portal, and that got me thinking about, this coach that wants to have a Zoom call with him." And the next thing you know, I'm daydreaming about something. Now it has something to do with what she said, but I didn't train my brain, and I didn't control my brain from going into that daydream.
Yeah. Easy to happen. Okay. Next one, rushing the person who is talking.
Today, Junior. Today, Junior.
Just being sensitive to the one who is a more slow processor and is working through it, and just kind of being patient.
I would definitely say this is for men to make sure that they're not rushing their wives when they're talking in circles, because at some point the circle will stop. They'll realize it, and they'll have already, just because they talked kind of in circles, that's what helped them process. And because
do you know this from experience?
No. This is what my mom did.
Sometimes women talk in circles.
It's so funny.
Okay, and the last one was finishing the speaker's thought.
I'm so bad with this. You're like, you know what I was thinking the other day?
Let me guess.
Yeah. And I don't even say, let me guess. I just tell you what you were thinking.
You're like, no.
But,
now I forgot what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. So let me give you the list again. Here are the bad listening habits: focusing on what you want to say next rather than listening, interrupting, lack of feedback, getting distracted, lack of eye contact, daydreaming, rushing the person who's talking, and finishing the speaker's thought. So don't do any of those things. That's a good list for all of us. But the goal is to be an active listener. So here, this next list, we're going to look at some things that you can do to be a better listener. We're not going to look at the things that you can do to be a better talker.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you can be a better listener, then the talking will take care of itself.
Yeah.
All right. So 7 strategies to put active listening into practice. What's
number one? Give feedback to show you are listening.
Yeah. And that honestly, most of that is the nonverbal.
Right. Most
of it is looking, it's shaking the head, it's eye contact. It's, it's when you're seeking to understand, then your spouse can see it in your eyes. It's like, with a movie, you can tell a bad actor because they're just not believable. but the good actors are the ones who are so believable, they're in it. So what's the difference between a bad actor and a good actor? Well, the good actor knows how to really be in it.
Yeah.
A bad actor is acting.
Yeah.
So your spouse can tell through your eyes whether or not you're really in it with them.
Yeah. This makes me think of a book that I read recently, The Connection Code. And he talks about, there's a whole chapter and I forget what it's like. Ooh, is the name of the chapter. And it's literally just talking about how important it is to have some sense of a verbal acknowledgement that you're in the conversation. So when your spouse is talking to you, like there has to be some sense of response. And so I think it was like, his thing is like, I'm just constantly like, it's really showing them that you're listening through your verbal cues.
Yeah, that's good. What's number 2?
Allow for periods of silence.
That's something I think that as you're married for a longer period of time that you get better at, but being okay with silence and not just filling it up with words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you fill it with silence, then both of you have an opportunity to just kind of think. I think by God's grace, we've kind of worked into a good rhythm with that we don't, the minute you're done talking and I don't have anything to say or whatever, we just kind of sit in silence. And then the next thing, we're both trying to say something at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, sitting in that silence is a good thing.
Yeah. Being comfortable with something that could feel uncomfortable. It's like, there's some silence, but this is fine. This is good. This is what we need right now to move on in the conversation.
Silence is the processing opportunity.
Yes.
When that silence is there, it gives you both an opportunity to process. So embrace that silence. All right. What's number 3?
Is repeat back what's been said.
Oh, this is a good one.
Because it helps you and it helps your partner. It's like it helps you to be an active listener because you know that you're going to, in your own words, say back what they just said to make sure that you're understanding. Yes. And then it gives your spouse this reassurance that you have been listening.
Yes.
It really is such a good one if you can practice this because it helps. If you're thinking that you have to repeat back, then you actually listen.
Yeah. And you probably don't want to start with the cliche. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, okay, if you say that, chances are you're going to get slapped.
Yeah, that's true.
Just figure out some other thing.
Way to summarize.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to understand, is this what you're saying? And then say it, like if you can do that, very few couples do that actually, because you're too busy thinking about what you want to say next. But if you be an active listener, and you're like, okay, so I think I'm hearing you right. Does this sound like it's accurate?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's something that you have to do continuously, but I think it's such a good practice to help you become an active listener.
Yeah.
It's like understanding, like we're working on this, we're practicing this. So, hey, can I repeat back to you? Because it may not feel natural to like, wait.
Right.
It's like,
it'll feel corny at first, but just do it. And you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, to get you guys into the flow of becoming active listeners.
Yeah, that's good.
And then the fourth one is be neutral and non-judgmental.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Don't be so opinionated. You don't have to voice your opinion immediately. Let them explain their thing and just sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah, and remember, feelings aren't wrong. Feelings aren't wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay, feelings are feelings. They are, emotions are an impulse to act. So if your spouse is feeling a certain way and they're saying certain things, let them say it. Let them feel it. Now, thoughts around feelings can be wrong.
Right.
So you definitely want to talk about that, but don't jump to judgments. And you want to listen with that empathetic, like, if this were me, that would have been crappy. Yeah, I would have felt the same way kind of thing. And you just don't, this is where contempt comes in, where contemptuous thoughts are comparison thoughts.
Right.
Contemptuous thoughts say, wow, if I were going through the same situation, I wouldn't respond that way.
Right.
Well, now you have compared yourself to your spouse and you've placed yourself in the superior position. So when you're thinking like that, like, oh, they did that, I wouldn't do that, then they feel judged and they'll see it in your eyes.
Right.
And then it causes them to not be as open with you.
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
And I think this is where self-awareness comes in too. Are you a naturally judgmental person? Do you naturally jump to a conclusion?
Yeah.
And just being self-aware. This whole book is actually, he talks about the different brain types, right? Like the different ways that people naturally think. And he just talks about how important it is to be self-aware, to know. And that's why there are so many different ways to be self-aware. This is actually why I read this book, to kind of understand which one is, the way that I naturally am bent.
Yeah.
So the different types are spontaneous, persistent.
Different brain types.
Yeah. In the book, it's spontaneous, persistent, cautious, sensitive, and that's it. There's just 4 different types. And so if you are the persistent, he talks about in this particular section of the book, that if you're persistent, then you're going to naturally probably be a little bit judgmental. That's just going to be your bent. And it's important for you to know that.
And your spouse to know that.
So that you can manage that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to happen unnecessarily a lot.
I can probably be a persistent person, with you. And I have to slow my brain down and be like, okay, listen to everything she's saying. Don't jump to conclusions. I'm like, hey, I already got it figured out. Tor,
right.
I don't even need you to talk anymore, because I got this figured out.
I know.
Yeah. You're supposed to say, no, that's not really.
No, I'm saying you're like, I know. Like you're just like, you're a confident person. You kind of feel like you have the answer.
Yeah.
But I think you're very humble, and that you've really worked on this a lot. And because you're self-aware, you actually I wouldn't even guess at this stage of our life that you are that persistent, because I think that you've managed yourself well through, understanding emotional intelligence and really just working on things.
We need to do another podcast on emotional intelligence. It's too good to not.
It's true.
Are you going to do another one of those?
Okay. So number 5, ask for clarification.
Number 5.
Ask questions.
This is in the strategies. Okay. Yeah.
Going back to the strategies.
Yep.
Number 5, ask for clarification. Just ask questions.
Yeah. That's huge. And Tori and I have this little practice in our marriage coaching. And we've got other coaches that use this as well, called speaker listener. Mm-hmm. So when the couple is going through an issue, you've got to have speaker. We literally can walk them through speaker listener. Okay, both of you shut up. All right, now wife, you're the speaker. Husband, you're the listener. Mm-hmm. Wife, you speak. So she has like 2 or 3 minutes to speak. Husband, you do nothing but listen. Okay, then once wife is done speaking, husband, repeat back what you heard.
Yeah.
Okay, wife, clarify anything. Okay, then husband, ask this question. Is there anything else? You have to ask that question. Is there anything else? Mm-hmm. And wife says yes or no to that. If she says yes, she explained anything else. Okay. Then at the end, listener says thank you and doesn't say anything else. Mm. Okay. Thank you. Then we switch it, because what happens is the listener wants to then rebut what was said and all this kind of stuff. But no, they can't do it. That you just have to repeat it back. That's where the ask for clarification comes in,
right? And
those kinds of things. And then at the end, it's just thank you. And then after both of them have done that, we give them a period of 15 to 20 minutes, and you kind of sit and don't talk about it. And then we come back. And I'm just telling you, it's a really amazing practice. I didn't come up with it. It's a psychological coaching practice, but so when you're asking for clarification, it's really good. And that shows your spouse that you really care about understanding.
Mm. Yeah, and the last one is recap the conversation, which is exactly.
No, the number 6 is ask open-ended questions. So that's.
Yep, I actually skipped that one because we covered it in clarification.
Did we really?
But that you're going to ask questions, but in his list, it's ask open-ended questions. Yeah. And then, which is exactly what we just talked about. And then the 7th one is recap the conversation.
See, Tori, you're so much smarter than I am. Recapping the convo is really good.
Wow. That was that persistent brain. Nope, you skipped one.
I'm sitting here looking at my list. I'm like, there we are, right there. And see, guys, rather than Tori and I editing that out, we'll leave it just so you guys can see how we work through our own little situations.
Things are very more black and white for you. And I'm like, well, we just kind of summed that up.
You're right.
Let's moving on. We don't have much time.
So you guys know, Tori and I, we're about to go hit a nice little workout, but we did this podcast first. And so she's got the book with the list, and I wrote down the list. And I'm a 1 on Enneagram.
Do it the right way.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so we can't go from number 5 to number 7, Tor. Where's number 6, dear Lord? Give me number 6. That's really funny.
Yep.
So Tori's a 9. And so what she's learned to be is more assertive. Mm-hmm. Because as a 1, I'm like, no, it has to be perfect. And then she's like, no, shut your pie hole. It doesn't have to be perfect. So we've had to learn to do that with each other. So can you give the 7 strategies one more time? Read through.
So you're going to give feedback to show you're listening, allow for periods of silence, repeat back what's been said, Be neutral and non-judgmental. Ask for clarification. Ask open-ended questions and recap the conversation.
Yeah, I love that. So it's recapping through that conversation. It's making sure that you guys are listening, you're speaking, you're doing everything that you can to be the most active listener who's seeking to understand more than being understood. And when you do that, listen, your relationship is going to go to a whole new level.
So good. I love that. I just wanted to read one more verse as I was praying this morning about this, that I just think is so important to keep in mind when we're talking about communication. In Colossians 4:6, it says, "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." And just looking at that seasoned with salt is an enhancer, right?
Yeah.
So when you're using salt on a meal, you're using it to make that food more palatable, to make it better, to make it enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it's so important to keep that in mind. Like what you're saying, season it with salt, be gracious with your words. It can be, I don't think that we fully understand how powerful words are.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like even looking back on my childhood and like looking back at my life, there are things that I have to like unlearn because of certain words that were spoken. And then just the power of like the words that you have spoken over my life. When I look back on our marriage, like some of the things that you have said to me have spoken such life to me.
Yeah.
And they've just been literal life to my body.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's so important to keep that in mind, that our words are really, really powerful. They have, what's that one? The power to give life.
Yeah. I forget, but I mean, your words bring life or death. Yeah.
The power that is in the tongue.
You speak and you will get out what you speak in. So you speak those words of life over your spouse.
So important.
And watch what you'll get out of it.
Exactly.
Now, are you do you have a recipe or anything for us?
So my friend Brittany shared a recipe with me at the beginning of the week, and it's a 2-ingredient donut that you make in the air fryer. And so all it is self-rising flour and Greek yogurt. And so they actually are so good. You can make a donut out of them, or you can make little bagel bites. And instead of doing self-rising flour, I made my own flour. And there's any kind of flour that you want to use. If you want to use almond flour, if you want to use gluten-free flour, whatever flour you want to use, you can easily find a recipe for self-rising online. And so I did it with kamut, which is a pretty healthy organic flour.
Yep.
And so I made my own all-purpose, which was just a cup of flour, 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So it's super easy to make. And then you just mix that all together, and then it's equal parts flour to Greek yogurt.
I don't even know what that means, but that's cool.
Equal parts, like 3/4 of a cup of flour to 3/4 of a cup of Greek yogurt.
Oh, God.
That's actually the actual recipe is 3/4. I think next time I'll just do a cup and a cup.
Okay.
Because it'll make a few more extra donuts. And then you basically just roll those little balls into little balls, and you spray them with like coconut. A coconut spray, like Trader Joe's has like a coconut spray. And then you roll it in cinnamon sugar.
Yeah.
And you pop those babies into the air fryer.
And ball game.
Oh my gosh. You bake them for like 8 minutes at 360, and they are really, really good.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Brittany.
Hoyt.
And Lundy loves the little bagel bites from Dunkin' Donuts, so I'm going to try them as bagel bites tomorrow.
Oh, that's
and
a good
you
call.
can put some everything but the bagel seasoning on them.
Let's do this.
This might be a new staple.
I like it. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We're talking all about communication today, and next week, we are going to be talking about assertiveness. So that's one. I'm just going to let Tori just talk to you guys. Maybe I'll keep my mouth shut. Just let her be assertive with it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Listen, if you haven't been to our website, beautyandbattle.com, taking our 5-day challenge, go take it. It's free. It's fun. And otherwise, follow us on socials. That's it.
We'll see you guys next week.
That's all I got. We'll see you. Peace.
See you guys.